rush home as fast as I can, my blood still pumping and my heart still beating rapidly. When I finally get home, I lock the door and try to catch my breath. Despite being physically exhausted, my mind is still racing with what I just experienced. I can't believe that I made it out of there alive. Despite the adrenaline still coursing through my veins, I'm starting to feel a sense of fatigue setting in. I lean against the door and take some deep breaths, trying to get my mind to relax. I take a quick look at the body cam strapped to my chest, making sure the footage of my encounter was still there. I see that it's all properly recorded and intact. I breathe a slight sigh of relief, knowing that anyone who watches this footage will be able to see exactly what I experienced. I go over to my computer and plug the body cam into the USB port, transferring the footage while simultaneously charging the body cam's battery. I watch as the file starts to transfer, feeling a sense of relief knowing that all the footage has been properly backed up. As the footage is transferred, I check the battery level. Seeing that the battery is halfway full after transferring the footage, I decide to leave it for now and focus more on taking some rest. I wait for the transfer to finish, making sure that all the footage has been successfully transferred. Once the transfer is complete, I remove the body cam from the computer and set it on the desk, allowing it to finish charging. After making sure that the body cam is properly back up and charging, I head downstairs to make some lunch. I decide to make a simple meal of a sandwich and some juice, trying to keep it light since my stomach is still a little bit queasy from the encounter I just had. After finishing my lunch, I decide to just relax and watch some TV. I flip through a few channels, trying to find something entertaining to take my mind off of my encounter, but none of the shows really hold my attention. After flipping through a few channels, I finally come across a channel of some YouTubers playing a fan game based on Five Nights at Freddy's called Joy of Creation Reborn. I've always been a fan of Five Nights at Freddy's, so I decide to watch some of the gameplay. I settle in to watch and try to focus on this instead of my encounter. As I watch the YouTubers play through the game, I start to become entranced in the gameplay and the story. It's amazing to see how far these fan games have come, with their own unique stories and atmosphere. I soon find myself getting immersed in the gameplay, forgetting about my encounter. As I watch the YouTubers play through the game, I notice that the objective they have to complete is to collect 5 objects within 1 minute. I find this interesting and strange, and it catches my attention. I wonder why the developers made this their objective. Is it a gimmick, or does it serve a higher purpose? I'm not entirely sure, but it's definitely intriguing. I continue watching the gameplay, trying to see if there's some kind of deeper meaning behind this objective. I watch as the YouTubers struggle to gather the objects within the time limit, often failing and having to restart various sections of the game. I start to feel a sense of suspense as the YouTubers are nearing the time limit and still have a few objects left to collect. I continue to watch and quickly notice that the objective is made even more intense by the presence of the ignited animatronics. These hostile animatronics roam the facility, actively hunting the players, adding an additional layer of challenge and suspense to the objective. The YouTubers have to be extremely careful and fast when gathering the objects to avoid being caught and attacked by the animatronics. This intensity increases as the YouTubers get further into the game and are close to the completion of the objective. As I watch them frantically moving through the facility, dodging and avoiding the hostile animatronics. I can feel a sense of tension and suspense as I watch them, hoping they will be able to complete the objective without being caught. As the YouTubers near the end of the game, my suspense and tension only increases. I start to hold my breath as it becomes clear that there's only a short amount of time left for them to complete the objective. They're dodging and evading the hostile animatronics, trying to gather the final few objects, and I can feel my heart racing in anticipation of what will happen next. Finally, as the YouTubers gather the final few objects, they complete the objective just seconds before the time limit expires. I exhale a sigh of relief, feeling relieved that they managed to do it in the end. My heart is still racing, and I'm left with a sense of adrenaline and relief as the YouTubers complete the objective and move to the next level. Despite the sense of relief I'm experiencing having just watched the YouTubers complete the objective, my adrenaline-fueled mind still can't stop thinking about my encounter in the abandoned building and how close I came to death. I can't help but wonder what would happen if I were to visit the House of Creation in real life. The thought of experiencing a real-life horror adventure, wielding a handgun, and having a body cam to record it all is enticing and exciting. Despite the danger, I begin to consider the possibility of visiting the house and trying out the experience myself. Despite the risks, my curiosity gets the better of me and I decide that I'm going to visit the house tonight at 10 p.m. The concept of experiencing a true-to-life horror experience in a first-person shooter style with a handgun, body cam, and all the elements of horror and suspense involved is too enticing to pass up. Despite the danger, I find myself eager to go through with my plans. Knowing that I'm going to be visiting the Joy of Creation house and potentially facing some hostile animatronics tonight, I decide to take extra precautions and make sure that my military uniform and tactical gloves are clean and ready to use. I wash my uniform in the laundry, making sure to get any dirt and potential germs that might be on them. And then I switch out the regular ammo for some stronger ammo for my gun in case I end up needing it. I want to make sure that I'm as prepared as possible for anything that may come my way tonight. After making sure that my uniform, tactical gloves, and gun are all clean and freshly loaded with extra ammo, I take a final look in the mirror before I go. I make sure my haircut is presentable and that I look the part. I want to look like a credible and intimidating figure when I go to visit the Joy of Creation house tonight. I don't want to look like some helpless civilian. I want the animatronics to know that I mean business, and I'm not afraid to defend myself and fight back if necessary. Satisfied with my appearance, I put on my hat and pick up my gun and tactical gloves. I load my handgun up with the extra ammo I have packed, just in case I need to use it. I'm feeling excited, nervous, and a bit apprehensive, but ultimately I'm feeling ready to go. I'm going to go to the Joy of Creation house tonight and see what kind of experience I get. I may be in for a wild ride, but I'm ready to face it. At 0 p.m. sharp, and ready to go. I'm decked out in my military uniform and tactical gloves. I've loaded my handgun up with extra ammo, and I have my body cam attached and recording. I'm definitely feeling a sense of apprehension and tension as I'm about to venture into the Joy of Creation house, but I'm also feeling excited at the potential of experiencing something truly unique for a horror enthusiast like myself. I get into my military Jeep and start up the engine, making sure it's fully warmed up and ready to go. I start heading in the direction of the Joy of Creation house, anticipating what's to come. I feel a sense of nervousness and butterflies in my stomach, but I also feel a sense of excitement and adrenaline rushing through my veins. I'm ready to see what the night has in store for me. I follow the dirt path with the wooden lamp posts and start to see the Joy of Creation house come into view in the distance. The house is huge and imposing, with its dark, Gothic aesthetic. I can feel my heartbeat steadily increasing as I get closer to the house, as the anticipation of the upcoming adventure starts to set in. I can't help but feel a bit nervous as I get nearer to the house, but I'm also feeling excited and intrigued to experience it all firsthand. I finally reach the Joy of Creation house and pull into the driveway, parking my military Jeep in front of the house. The house looks even more imposing up close, with its dark Gothic exterior and towering structure. I can sense a bit of unease as I look up at the house, but I'm also feeling an aura of curiosity and excitement as well. I turn off the engine and unclip my seatbelt, getting ready to head inside the house. I take a deep breath as I get ready to venture inside the house. There's definitely a rush of adrenaline and excitement coursing through my veins as I approach the front door of the house, but there's also a sense of dread and trepidation as well. I take another deep breath, inhaling the cold air and preparing myself for the unknown. I grab hold of the door handle and swing the front door open, stepping through the threshold and beginning my adventure. I have my gun at the ready, with my flashlight attachment equipped as I step inside the house. My senses are instantly on high alert, taking in my surroundings and looking around for any signs of danger. The house itself is eerily quiet, with the only sounds being my footsteps. I slowly and carefully make my way into the house, keeping my flashlight on and my gun close to my side. I'm feeling a mix of unease and excitement, but I'm also keeping my composure and trying to remain focused and alert. I keep my senses high as I slowly walk through the house, when suddenly I notice that it's beginning to storm outside. It's a bit eerie, considering the weather was calm when I arrived a few minutes ago, but it certainly adds to the atmosphere and makes the vibe of the whole experience even more intense. I feel a bit of an adrenaline rush as I realize that things are becoming even more sinister and potentially dangerous than before. As I continue to slowly walk through the entrance of the house, I suddenly notice a sheet of paper pinned on the wall.
It catches my attention, and I stop in my tracks to take a look at what it says.
I read the sheet of paper pinned on the wall and see that it contains a set of instructions, much like the ones that were in the game. However, it contains an added twist by saying that there's no actual time limit and that I'll have to pretend that there is one. I decide to go along with the idea that I have all the time in the world to find the 5 objects, but I still need to be cautious because of the fact that I'm on the first floor, which is where Ignited Freddy is expected to roam. I start to slowly and carefully make my way around the first floor, being as quiet as possible and keeping an eye out for any signs of danger. I want to explore the house without alerting any of the hostile animatronics that may be lurking about. I'm being meticulous in my exploration of the first floor, being as quiet as possible and keeping an eye out for any signs of danger. I'm moving slowly and carefully, checking every corner and keeping an ear out for any sounds of movement or footsteps. I want to fully explore the first floor without alarming any of the hostile animatronics that may be roaming about. As I continue my cautious exploration of the first floor, I suddenly spot a very familiar item on the wall. It's a poster of Freddy with the words "Ready for Freddy" on it. It's the exact same item I saw in the fan game when I watched the YouTubers play it earlier. The item has a white glow around it, similar to the glowing items in the game. I realize that the white glow around the item is a signal that the objects that I need to collect are those with a white glow around them. That's why the game allowed the YouTubers to collect the glowing items, and it's probably what I should do as well, in order to progress through the house. I approach and gently collect the glowing Freddy poster off of the wall. I can feel the glow from the item through my gloves as I grab it, which is a bit unnerving, but also interesting. I add the item to my inventory and look around the room for any other possible objects with a white glow. I put the glowing Freddy poster into my inventory and start to scan the room for any other possible objects with a white glow. I keep my flashlight on in case any of the dark areas can't be seen without it, and I keep my gun close to my side, on the alert for any danger. I'm moving slowly and carefully, looking around and taking in my surroundings with heightened senses. I want to find all the necessary items as quickly as possible without alerting any of the animatronic enemies. I see the second glowing item, a Bonnie poster with the words "Let's Rock" on it. I collect the glowing object and add it to my inventory. I continue to look for any further items with a white glow, as I start to wonder how many more of these I have to find. I stop and freeze as I hear loud heavy metal footsteps on the other side of the wall. I stand absolutely still for a few seconds, listening closely for any other sounds or footsteps that might be coming my way. I try to stay as quiet as possible, not wanting to alert the animatronics any further. I realize that the loud, heavy metal footsteps I've been hearing are actually coming from Ignited Freddy. I can hear him walking around and getting closer to my current location. This definitely adds to the tension and suspense, as I know he could be right around the corner from my current position and could stumble upon me any second now. I remain as quiet and still as possible, hoping that he doesn't notice me and continues his regular path around the first floor. I notice the approaching white light, which I recognize as the light from Ignited Freddy's eyes. It's an incredibly useful signal that allows me to know where Freddy is at all times, before he actually comes into view. This makes things a bit easier, and allows me to better avoid and prepare for any surprise attacks from the animatronic. I'm keeping an eye on the approaching light, waiting for the moment that Ignited Freddy steps into view. I quickly move into another area before Ignited Freddy comes into view. I don't want to take any chances, and I don't want to get caught in the same area as him, where he could easily spot me and attack me. I move quietly and carefully as I try to avoid being seen, trying to remain alert and aware of my surroundings in case any other animatronics are nearby. I spot an object that looks like a telephone, and I walk over to it. I gently pick up the telephone, and I notice that it's glowing with the familiar white glow. I collect the glowing item and add it to my inventory. It appears to be a telephone, which is certainly a bit unexpected. I'm curious what this item could be needed for and what it does, if anything. I continue to look for any further glowing items, keeping my senses heightened and my flashlight on. I make sure to keep my gun close to my side as I look around the house and listen out for any other sounds or footsteps. I don't want to be caught off guard by any potential enemies. I hear footsteps approaching from somewhere around one of the corner walls, and I stop where I am for a moment to see if I can pinpoint the exact location of the footsteps coming my way. I see the fourth glowing item, which appears to be some kind of audio calibrator. The description of it as looking like the ones used in studios and TV stations is definitely fitting, as the shape and design is very much in line with what I would expect from such a device. I cautiously approach the object and pick it up, adding it to my collection. I add the object to my collection, and I continue to search the room for any further items with a white glow. My flashlight is still on, lighting up any dark areas of the house as I continue my search. I'm alert and keeping an eye out for any potential danger. I'm wondering how many items I have left to find, and what the purpose of this audio calibrator is. I continue searching the room for any further white glowing items, keeping my flashlight on. I'm moving and searching carefully and quietly, as I'm aware that it's possible for the animatronics to hear my footsteps and movements. I'm moving slowly and keeping my senses alerted, as I want to avoid any potential confrontations with the hostile animatronics if possible. I see the fifth glowing item, which is a radio. It is a bit of an odd-looking radio, as the shape of it does somewhat resemble a cash register or typewriter in a certain way, although it could very well be an old-style radio from the 1950s or something similar. I approach the object and collect it, adding it to my collection. I collect the radio and add it to my collection. It's certainly a bit of a strange-looking item, but perhaps it has some kind of function or purpose that I'm not yet aware of. I continue to take mental note of the glowing objects I collect, as I believe that there may be some sort of connection between them. I continue my exploration of the first floor, looking for signs of ignited Freddy and any other animatronics who might be roaming around, while making sure to be as quiet and careful as possible. While I continue my search, I keep the radio object in mind, and I take a few moments to inspect it and study its design to better understand what its purpose might be and if it has any hidden functions. I hear what sounds like footsteps coming my way, and I stop and freeze as I realize that it's possibly Freddy. I quickly move and hide behind one of the walls, hoping that he won't spot me. I stay as still and quiet as possible, but I can still hear the footsteps coming closer. I hear the footsteps becoming faster and louder, which indicates that Freddy is starting to run. I stay hidden behind the wall, pressing my body as closely against it as I can. I hear the footsteps coming closer and closer, and I hold my breath and remain as still as I can. I'm hoping that Freddy doesn't spot me and continue moving past my current location without noticing me. I'm spotted by Freddy as he passes by my current location and immediately starts to come after me with full speed. I hear him run up and past me as he searches for my exact location and runs around the room. In a moment of panic, I quickly move around and turn a corner, hiding out of plain sight. I hear Freddy continue to run, and I wait until I'm sure he's no longer looking for me before I move again. I know that just because he's no longer chasing me just yet, it doesn't necessarily mean he's given up on his search and will likely come back if he doesn't find any other targets. I also know that he could potentially hear me if I move too quickly, so I move around with extreme caution and silence. I hear the footsteps getting farther away as Freddy gives chase, and I take a deep breath, hoping that he doesn't track me to my current location. I quickly move around and turn another corner, trying to stay out of sight as much as possible. I stay as still as I can, trying to be as undetectable as possible. When the footsteps get beyond the area that I'm in, I move to another spot that's further away from where I originally was. I hear the footsteps continue to get slower and quieter as Freddy starts to move further away from my original location. I stay perfectly still and quiet, hidden from plain sight and trying to remain undetected as best as possible. I move to another spot that's further away from where I originally began, trying to get as much distance as I can between me and Freddy. I continue exploring the first floor of the house, keeping a close eye out for any possible signs of movement or footsteps from the animatronics. I move slowly and carefully, trying to be as undetected as possible. I walk through different rooms and corridors, slowly searching every corner and area. I continue to explore the first floor of the house, maintaining my composure and caution while also keeping an eye out for any possible signs of movement or footsteps from the animatronics. I move slowly and carefully, avoiding any areas with too much darkness or shadows and staying close to the walls and hidden in corners as much as I can. I'm being extra vigilant as I continue to search the house, not wanting to get caught off guard. I hear the calming music coming from a smaller radio, and it has a very nostalgic and retro feel, like something straight out of the 1900s. The music is a soft and soothing jazz, and it's very peaceful and relaxing. I take a moment to listen to it, enjoying its calm and pleasing aura. I see the small radio emitting the calming blues jazz music, and I walk over and examine it closer. It's an old-looking radio with a classic design and style, reminiscent of the 1900s. The music itself may be a bit haunting, but it also has an interesting retro vibe that I find somewhat captivating. I hear footsteps coming my way again, and I immediately freeze and become still. I hear the footsteps getting closer, and I can feel the pressure building in my stomach as Freddy moves closer and closer. I'm keeping an ear out, waiting for Freddy to get close enough to spot me. As Freddy approaches my location, I quickly turn and aim my gun at him. I fire several shots at Freddy, hoping more than anything to keep him away from my current location and to avoid getting killed by him. I fire several shots at Freddy, hitting him in the head and stunning him. He collapses to the ground, and I can hear him letting out a loud roar of pain and anger. It's definitely satisfying to see it get stunned and collapsed by my quick thinking and sharp shooting. After successfully stunning Freddy, I immediately run away in order to get some distance between me and him. I move quickly and quietly, trying to avoid attracting attention from any other animatronics that may be nearby. My adrenaline is pumping, and my heart is racing as I move with a purpose. I'm eager to get out of this house and away from the animatronics as quickly as possible. I head back out to the military jeep, which is still parked where I left it before going inside the house. I open the trunk, revealing the collected items from the first floor. I then start to prepare myself for the basement level of the house, taking out my gun and flashlight, and making sure I'm stocked up on ammo and batteries. I approach the basement door, ready to head downstairs and continue the exploration and collection of items. I step into the basement, now with a heightened sense of caution and awareness. I know that Ignited Bonnie is roaming around down here, and that he's more aggressive and faster than Freddy. I also know that he has no face like Withered Bonnie. The light from Ignited Bonnie's eyes will also be red, which will make it harder to see him and make him even harder to spot. I'm ready to deal with all of these things and more, especially since I'm prepared and stocked up on my arsenal and supplies. I move slowly and quietly into the basement, keeping a close eye and ear out for any potential signs of movement or footsteps of possible animatronics roaming around. I slowly make my way through the darkness and shadows, listening closely to my surroundings and being as alert as possible. I'm on guard for Ignited Bonnie, especially now that I know that his eyes will be red, which will make it even harder to spot him in the darkness. I've got my gun ready to fire at a moment's notice, and my flashlight on to help illuminate the entire area. I slowly move around the basement, making sure to be as close to the walls and in hiding locations as I can. I'm keeping a sharp eye and ear out for any signs of movement or footsteps from the animatronics roaming around. After a few moments of exploring, I spot the first glowing object. I have a fair idea that the items I'll find on the basement floor will most likely be similar to the ones I found on the first floor. I know that there will be a few small radio objects to collect, and I also expect to find an audio calibrator and an antenna system. I come across the telephone, which I initially assumed to be the same item I collected on the first floor of the house. However, when I take a close look at the item, I realize that it's actually a different telephone. The telephone on the first floor was an ordinary object, but this one seems to be more specialized and perhaps has a specific function unique to it. It also does not have the familiar white glow that I associate with the other objects I've collected so far. I hear the footsteps of Ignited Bonnie, which sounds similar to the footsteps of Freddy. I know that I'll be in a lot more trouble with Ignited Bonnie, since he's more aggressive and faster than Freddy. My heart is racing, and my hands are trembling as I try to keep the panic at bay. I continue to move slowly and cautiously, as I hear the footsteps moving around throughout the basement. It's a bit difficult to pinpoint where Ignited Bonnie is actually located, as his footsteps echo and echo throughout the area, making it harder to figure out his precise location. I move very little and stand completely still, barely even breathing or moving at all. I listen closely to the footsteps moving around me, trying to figure out where Ignited Bonnie is currently located. I hear the sounds of Ignited Bonnie approaching from around a corner, slowly coming closer and approaching to the area where I'm hiding. The footsteps get a bit louder. I hear Ignited Bonnie approach from around a corner, and I can tell that he's moving slowly and approaching the area where I'm hiding. The footsteps get a bit louder and are getting a bit closer. I hear the footsteps fade away as Ignited Bonnie moves out of my area and moves further away from where I am. I take a deep breath, relieved that I seem to have remained undetected by the animatronics this time, and that they've moved past my current location. However, I don't let my guard down, as I know that they can return at any moment. I continue to slowly move through the basement, being very cautious and keeping an eye out for any potential animatronics that might come my way. I'm trying to move as slowly and quietly as possible, and I'm keeping my flashlight on to help illuminate my surroundings. It's pretty tense and scary down here, knowing that Ignited Bonnie is roaming around and that he could come back into the area at any moment. I come across the second radio, which is the exact same object I collected on the first floor. It's definitely an unexpected find to see the same exact object here on the basement floor. Still, I don't let this unexpected finding distract me from my main goal, which is to collect more items. I collect the second radio, which is the same exact item I collected on the first floor. It's definitely an unexpected seeing the exact same object here on the basement floor. And while it does make me wonder why the same exact object is in this place, I don't let it distract me from the goal of collecting items. I notice the third item, which is an old film wheel that's just sitting on the floor in a corner. It seems out of place, and I'm unsure of what purpose it might serve here in the room. I carefully approach the old film wheel and take a closer look at it. I notice that there's a small notch cut in the edge, which suggests that it might have some kind of function. I also notice that the film wheel is labeled with a few numbers on it, which could signal its purpose or function. I continue to explore the basement floor, looking around and checking any dark areas and corners. I don't want to neglect any part of the floor, as I could potentially miss something important if I don't look carefully. I remain on my guard and keep a close watch out for any sign of movement or footsteps from the animatronics. I continue to explore, checking the entire basement floor in case there may be any hidden areas or items that I've overlooked so far. I'm especially careful of any dark areas and corners, since they can be the most likely locations for items to be hidden. I walk slowly, methodically, and carefully, while keeping a keen eye out for any potential danger. I find the fourth and fifth items in that order, which are a book and a folder. The book is an old and worn-out hardcovered book, while the folder is just a simple office folder, much like the ones I've seen in offices in the real world. I pick up the book, which is an old and worn-out hardcovered book. It's a bit dusty, and I can see that it's seen better days. I carefully open it, hoping to read some information and learn more about the origin of this place and the animatronics. I then pick up the folder, which is a simple office folder. It's fairly thin and light, and the only thing inside it is a few pieces of paper. Nothing special or remarkable. I hear the footsteps again, and I immediately stiffen and freeze as I hear the metal stomping footsteps coming close to my area. I can tell that it's Ignited Bonnie again, and my heart starts to race as I remember how dangerous he is compared to Freddy. I stay as still as possible, barely even breathing as I wait for Ignited Bonnie to pass by and move past my area. There's a tense moment of fear as he comes close to my area and passes by, moving around the corner without spotting me. I can't help but let out a small exhale and a sigh of relief after he passes by successfully. In a moment of intense panic, I drop my firearm and immediately try to hide in the corner again, but it's too late. Ignited Bonnie sees me, and he immediately charges towards me with a roar of anger and hunger. I desperately pick up my firearm, and I run as fast and as hard as I can away from Ignited Bonnie, who has given chase at full speed. I can hear his footsteps behind me getting louder and closer, and I'm trying my utmost to stay as far away as possible. I can smell his metallic odor lingering in the air, and just the thought of getting close to him triggers feelings of fear and panic within me. I hear the footsteps getting louder and closer, and I can feel my heart beating out of my chest in fear. I'm desperately running as fast as I can, knowing that every step brings me closer to freedom and safety. My stomach is also tightening up. My hands are shaking, and I'm out of breath from the adrenaline that's pumping through my body.
My entire body is reacting in panic to the immediate danger.
I frantically twist and turn, making multiple turns and twists to try and get him stuck. And he just barely misses me several times, his metallic hands barely grazing my body at times. I know that I can't afford to remain still for a single moment, nor can I allow myself to make a single mistake that will give him the opportunity to catch up to me. I continue to frantically twist and turn, making multiple turns and twisted as I maneuver through the corridors and corners of the basement floor, trying to successfully evade Ignited Bonnie. He's still chasing me, moving with inhuman speed and agility, and he's just barely missing me at times. I keep running as far as I can to hopefully get out of the basement floor, then turn around and aim my firearm towards Ignited Bonnie, who's now chasing me. I'm firing several shots at him, hoping that I can incapacitate or at least slow him down enough to run away successfully. I manage to stun Ignited Bonnie with my attacks, and he collapses to the floor, causing me to breathe a sigh of relief. I keep my distance from him though, and I stay alert and cautious, just in case he suddenly regains consciousness and starts chasing me again. I leave the basement and return to the first floor, where it seems to be a bit more calm and less tense. I remain on guard, but I can somewhat relax, knowing that at the very least, I won't have to deal with Ignited Bonnie chasing after me for now. I'll just have to contend with Freddy roaming around the first floor. I prepare myself for the third level, knowing that I'll have to deal with Ignited Chica. I've been warned about how different she is from Freddy and Ignited Bonnie, and she's apparently way faster than both of them. She also has a stalking behavior instead of constantly roaming around, and I'll have to keep an eye on her to make her stop. There's also a risk of pissing her off and making her attack me if I look at her too long, so I'll have to keep a close watch on her and keep my glances short and quick.